Famous last words. It's InGoal Radio, the podcast presented by The Hockey Shop, source for Sports Langley, thehockeyshop.com. Darren Millard with Kevin Woodley today. David Hutchison is on assignment. Famous last words. What was the last thing you said to me before we pressed record?
I think I can pull this off.
That's the t-shirt for today's episode between the two of us without our dad Hutch here.
We might be in trouble, buddy. We might be in trouble. Nobody to keep us on the rails.
This thing might go 7 hours or it might go 17 seconds.
No, it'll go 17 hours, but the usable parts might only be 17 seconds.
Right now, Hutch is listening back to this, ready to edit, and he's sweating profusely like he just went through a triple ice time.
Don't worry, Hutch, as you listen to this. Me and Darren both have other things we have to do soon, so we can't be on for 17 actual hours together.
Unless we pause it and come back to finish, which could be the case.
It's possible.
We are inside of a month to go before the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I find it interesting that the Vezina Trophy favorite is playing for one of the top two teams in the National Hockey League, chasing a President's Trophy in Connor Hellebuyck, and the next best guy might not even make the playoffs. Can you explain Igor Shesterkin's brilliance, even though he's not in a postseason position right now?
Well, I don't know about next best guy because there's a handful right around that territory, but certainly in that list, and not many people would, looking at the raw numbers, include him, but I would. Igor Shesterkin is third in the NHL, according to Clearsight Analytics, in goals saved above expected. So what are goals saved above expected? It's basically his performance relative to environment in totality. So with all the shots he faced, what's an average NHL goaltender expected to save, and how much more has he saved? Obviously, if you end up on the negative side of that, it means you've been worse than your environment. But Shesterkin is at 17.82 goals saved above expected. Logan Thompson leads the league at 21.34. And as a matter of fact, right now, Igor is actually 3 goals clear of Connor Hellebuyck, who is the presumptive Vezina Trophy favorite and fully deserving of it. He leads every category in the raw numbers. How does that happen, you might ask? Well, it's a little thing we call shot quality. And not Hellebuck's fault at all. I think, in fact, part of the reason the Winnipeg Jets defend so well is because of their faith in him and how the interplay between his performance, their trust in it, and their belief that if they execute their system the way they do, he will come up with all the saves and more. But he's got one of the higher expected save percentages at 903. Igor Shesterkin, 884. That is 19 points difference in environment. So to look at the NHL.com stats and the save percentage, the raw numbers that we all see on all the sites, you are comparing apples to oranges. And to make it closer to apples, and it's not exact. It's a matter of fact, it's a big oversimplification on my part. But in simplest terms, if you want to know what Igor Shesterkin's numbers would be like in Hellebuck's environment, add 19 points to his numbers at NHL.com. And now you've got at least a more fair comparison. Again, probably discrediting Hellebuyck a little bit by doing it that way, but trying to show people or explain to people what a difference in environment makes. Anybody that's watched the New York Rangers knows they have not been good defensively this year. It has been a lot of Igor Shesterkin sort of saving their butts, frankly. So I was actually on a podcast recently where they asked me, like, sort of, what's wrong with Igor? I'm like, nothing. He's been really good. And you're right, Darren. He might not even be in the playoffs. And he's one of those guys that has the ability to single-handedly change a series.
So how do you, as somebody that's really engaged in all the analytics, evaluate a season by Connor Hellebuyck, by Logan Thompson? They are going to finish 1-2 in the overall standings with their teams and are expected to finish 1-2 in Vezina Trophy. They've been the conversation all year. And then compare that to Igor Shesterkin.
It's really hard to do, right? Like, it is really hard to do. Essentially, the numbers I have access to through Clearsight Analytics help us to balance their workload a little bit.
But you don't want to just go on the numbers, right? There's got to be an eye test there somewhere.
Yeah, but like, it's kind of impossible. You could watch every game of both teams, and there's like, there's no way for anyone to quantify how much apples to oranges it is from one team to the next without the numbers. Like I don't care if you're a goalie expert and you watch every single game of all teams. Like it's really hard to do, and that's why we lean on the numbers. Now, in terms of overall, like Connor Hellebuyck's having a season, where he could lead every major category in the National Hockey League. Like he'll win the Vezina Trophy and is fully deserving of it. Full stop. Like I said, like a big part of what Winnipeg is able to do is because of the buy-in and belief that those players and the coaches have in Connor Hellebuyck's abilities, and that if they do things this way, they're going to have a chance to win every night with him in the net. But that doesn't mean that you discount his performance. It doesn't mean you discount Igor's. I'm just trying to give you some balance on all of those things. Is Hellebuyck being below some of those other guys in the adjusted numbers enough to take away the Vezina Trophy when he leads every single category in the raw numbers? No, like I said, I'm not arguing for him not to win it. I think he's fully deserving of a third Vezina Trophy. He's well on his way to the Hall of Fame. He's one of the best goalies in the league. He's arguably the best goalie in the league. I just think that the context at least lets us put guys like Igor Shesterkin and Dustin Wolf, frankly, into the conversation, whereas if we look at the raw numbers, maybe that's not the case. The other part that you have to consider here, and maybe this is into the Logan Thompson debate, because his adjusted numbers, he leads the league, as I said earlier, in goals saved above expected. His adjusted save percentage is plus 2.1%, which is tops in the NHL of anybody. That's the only other guy that's higher is Freddie Anderson, but way smaller sample size. But I think you do have to consider the games played and the starts. Like Shesterkin's at almost 1,400 saves or chances against, scoring chances. Connor Hellebuyck's at 1,300. Logan Thompson's just at 1,000. Like workload matters, and your ability to be consistent and be healthy and play a steady game. Like that's all part of this conversation that goes more towards, the eye test and the overall picture. And that again tilts it in Connor's favor because his ability to do this consistently, night in, night out, through the Four Nations, come back and be the same guy, like that matters. And so I think the numbers just add context for the guys who, might otherwise get overlooked. Like the Thompson Hellebuyck conversation is fascinating. Let's see where it finishes. At the new year, sort of January 1st, Hellebuyck was 1-2 with him. I think the numbers have fallen off a little bit since the new year, and let's see where they end up. Same with Logan Thompson. Logan Thompson's numbers have come back down to earth as well, Darren. His numbers at one point this season were up there with Igor Shesterkin when everybody said he should win the Hart Trophy. Like they were that good, like numbers we hadn't seen in 5 years. Now they're still the best in the NHL, his adjusted save percentage, but not to the same gap or degree that they were halfway through the season. So you got to do this tip to tail to be in this conversation, and we're not quite at the tail. So let's see where it all ends up.
I've always maintained November and December are the most important months when it comes to winning a Vezina Trophy because people gain steam. They travel around the league on road trips, and it's a conversation with all the broadcasters and all the media. And then your opinion is formed by the time you get to the dog days, and people turn their attention back to playoffs and other things. And the November, December performances stand out.
Well, and Connor Hellebuyck in the calendar year 2024, it was a calendar year for the ages. We talked about Shesterkin's Hart Trophy season. That calendar year was in that category, right? Like he was exceptional. The numbers jumped off the page, both adjusted and raw. And so, Logan Thompson at that point was exceptional as well, but the sample size was much smaller, right? Like I have no doubt Connor Hellebuyck's going to win his third Vezina Trophy. And I'm not making an argument in any way, shape, or form that he shouldn't. I'm just showing you that when you adjust the numbers, there are some other guys that deserve to be in the conversation. Ultimately, the conversation starts and ends with Hellebuyck, and I have no problem with that. I'd happily cast a vote for Connor Hellebuyck to win another Vezina.
If you were voting on the Vezina Trophy, what percentage would you put into these three categories if you had to divide them up? Eye test, raw stats, and adjusted numbers. I don't think it would be 33% across the board. So you don't have to give me the exact figure to add up to 100, But what would be the least and what would be the biggest percentage between the eye test, raw stats, and adjusted numbers?
Oh, it would definitely be adjusted numbers because
would be.
I just showed you how, like, raw stats. I mean, at the end of the day, it's apples to oranges. Like, comparing guys on different teams with different performances defensively, and Shesterkin's the extreme of it, right? Because the Rangers are like bottom third in every defensive category, not just bottom third of the league. I mean, bottom three, I should say. Like, that's really hard to do, to have any level of consistency when your team is that bad defensively, and that's what the Rangers have been this year. And so that's where the context comes in. I think that raw numbers, there's just too much apples to oranges. And eye test, man, like
10%?
well, I don't know. Like, look at Hellebuyck and look at Logan Thompson. Those guys played the game different. Like, it doesn't look textbook all the time. Like, they're very unique. We've talked about how Connor Hellebuyck thinks the game. You know, that brain, like, we used to say Hasek was the brain like a computer, body like a slinky. Like, he's like that in terms of how he anticipates. Logan Thompson plays a lot deeper this year. On the podcast with us, he credited it to Sean Burke to sort of finally buying into that. But it doesn't always look pretty. There's a lot of scramble. There's a lot of battle.
But there are a lot of nice saves, big saves,
yeah,
flamboyant saves.
right. And at the end of the day, flamboyant saves, I don't know that they should
Look
matter.
good on the eye test.
They do, but how he gets there doesn't always like. So I don't know. I guess that's the question. Who's doing
Would
the
you
eye
go
test?
5% then?
Maybe.
Okay.
Like, think
So
about
5%
it. Like,
of the high end.
who's doing the eye test, Darren? It's not me.
It's you.
It's general
I'm
managers.
asking you right now.
Yeah.
If you were doing it.
There's the only, I guess so. I would
So
probably.
then we got 95% to divide up between raw stats and adjusted numbers. I'm doing this experiment on the fly.
I'm leaning adjusted numbers way over raw stats. They just add context. Like, I'd be like
70-30?
I'd be like, whatever it is, 2/3, 66, 33.
70-25?
I
Wow.
just like the number 33, little Patty Waugh, throw it in there.
Wow. I didn't think it would be that big of a disparity.
Well, maybe people are hearing that and they're like, well, then screw this guy because I don't trust his numbers or whatever.
No, I think it's a great education on where you put the priority.
We've seen it within teams where you can't compare the starter to the backup because they just have different workloads and they face different teams. And as a result of, like, I've seen like 15-point swings in expected save percentage because the backup only gets the back-to-back games and their team happens to stink in back-to-back games. Like, we've seen discrepancies within the same team. So how the hell are you comparing goalies on two entirely different teams with two entirely different schedules, different workloads? I just think it's, at the end of the day, being able to measure the quality they face and quantify that is your only chance to make any type of direct comparison. And again, I'm not going exclusively on it. I just think it needs to be weighted. How much? Honestly, I'd never thought of it, but because I just said 67% to give me my Patty Waugh 33% on the raw, and yet I'm giving the Vezina to Connor Hellebuyck, who leads all the raw. So at the end of the day, it's a magical, mystical formula, and I don't have all the answers, and it's going to be one of those goalies are voodoo, which I hate, answers to that question.
I give the eye test a bigger number, but I'm always right.
You're just against the full rights, so that's what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, there's only a few of them left. Washington has 2 of them. Does style matter? Like, Helly's got a unique style, but I love watching him. I don't know. Style
we could fight over it.
I'd probably go on Connor Hellebuyck at 6'4". He's a big boy with lots of reach.
We could have a goalie fight.
We don't get any of those, do we? We could do it for the Vezina.
We almost had one the other day.
Yeah, we need to take the officials off the ice, and maybe the Vezina vote will be the only time we ever get a goalie fight.
What do you think of Swayman going to center ice and calling
Darcy
Kemper down?
I think I've already done a radio segment this morning on this. There, everybody was disappointed that it didn't happen, but honestly, we haven't had one since they changed the rules about helmets. It's not in the rule book, but I'm pretty sure there's an unwritten rule there or an instructions to linesmen and referees that as soon as the goalie takes the mask off, because fighters are not allowed to take their helmets off, as soon as the goalie takes it off, they get involved and they break it up. We saw it with Fleury and Binnington. We saw it last night with Swayman and Kemper.
So the goalies not know this?
I don't, because it's not written anywhere. Like, I don't think this is a written rule.
But you know it.
And I don't know it, Darren. Like, I'm not reporting this in any way, shape, or form, but common sense tells you we've seen it at every level. Like,
so the goalies just need to keep their masks on when they start the fight.
Maybe they need to grapple and take each other's masks off for it to be legal, honestly, because as soon as it comes off, like, you saw it.
It's a great rule. You need that rule in place. You can't be taking your helmets off on purpose.
It's a legality thing, right? Like, it's an insurance liability, like all those things. Like, that rule came into place for the player. I give you that. Yeah. But like, as soon as the lid comes off for a goalie, the officials are in there. So as much as we're all disappointed and we get mad at the referees, clearly when we have multiple instances of this happening and it happens the same way, something is in there, whether it's, even if it's not the rule book, even if it's just an instruction or a memo or whatever, for them not to let that happen as soon as and the helmet coming off is the impetus to prevent it. So, somebody said Swayman should have just gone through the ref. He could have got around him. I'm like, yeah, because you really want to add a suspension to what has already been a difficult season. You're already getting tossed for chucking them. I just, to me, it seems pretty obvious that that's what's happening here. Anybody from the NHL wants to let us know and confirm that, they can, but it seems pretty clear that goalie fights are going to be tough to come by because of the removal of the helmet. And obviously nobody wants their goalie throwing hands into a steel cage that had sharp edges on it, right? Like the cage and the welds and stuff like that. You catch a hand on that, you're cutting yourself open. So you can't be punching a guy in the mask. They've got to come off, and yet as soon as they do, the referees come in.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. You could put your fingers in the cage and rip the head around, but then you still don't want to punch it. Right. So you put your fingers in the cage and you rip the mask off. That would hurt.
So goalie's got to do now. Everybody, if you really actually want to have a fight, don't take it off. Just pop your two buckles the same way they pop when you get hit in the chin. Pop the two buckles on the lower elastic that goes through the back plate so that when you arrive with your other guy, it's going to pop off as soon as you flip your head back, right? So make it easy for it to come off without actually taking it off. It looks pretty cool, though, right? When the guy like lifts his helmet off and puts it down on the ice. We don't condone violence here at the InGoal Radio Podcast. We believe the referees are officially in the right for doing it this way.
Yes, they are.
But it is kind of fun.
I was on doing the game between Vegas and Tampa Bay last night, and it came across the feed, and it was like, "Ooh!" And everybody was scrambling for their phones. One more thing on the scrap: Darcy Kemper didn't get tossed for crossing the red line. He and Swayman just got 2 minutes for leaving the crease during an altercation. That old wives' tale, like, can't cross center ice. You're done. Nothing happened.
Well, if you think about it, you cross center ice every time you go to your bench.
Not during an altercation, though.
Right. So they let them off. They use judgment and let them off the hook for nothing. Mm-hmm. You didn't fight. We're not going to toss you.
Common sense. I like it.
And I would argue that at some level, as soon as the interpretation about players not taking their helmet off for a fight came in, common sense said that goalies couldn't either.
Over at the Hockey Shop, source for Sports Langley, thehockeyshop.com. We'll get into our gear segment this week, profiling the stick rack with the Project X Smoke by True. How are things going over with your buddy Cam?
They are busy. They are packed. They are jammed. They have all the new inventory coming in for the spring launches. It's going to be a very exciting spring. CCM eFlex 7, which we had the pleasure of seeing as far back as last summer and actually even in the spring, that's coming. The new gear from Bauer, their customizer is live. So you can check out the new Vapor line. It's all coming in, like just boxes and boxes and boxes, and it's all being stacked up in the back, waiting for launch dates. Tons of new material for us to be reviewing here on the InGoal Radio Podcast. All kinds of sales as they try and clear space from the shelf to make room for the new. Make sure you check out their spring break sale right now at thehockeyshop.com or in person at the Hockey Shop Source for Sports Langley, because there are massive discounts on previous generations of both lines, both at the top level pro gear all the way down to the lower level lines, especially on the CCM side. So make sure you check out the sales. They call it the spring break sale. It is basically, let's clear out the shelves in spring because we got a crap ton of new gear coming in. And there has been, it's been a weird year. I think this is the new trend in the industry for launches to sort of come at different times of the year. Bauer and CCM sticking with the spring launches, but we've seen new launches from other companies in the meantime. We've documented them here on the gear segment, and that includes this week's stick, which has kind of quietly snuck up on the rack, although it really jumps out from both from its weight and its appearance. The True Project X Smoke. Let's go to Cam and get a few of the details on what sets this one apart. Welcome back to the Hockey Shop Source for Sports. I'm over in Goalie Utopia with Cam for a quick hit on the Project X Smoke Stick. Mr. Matwiv, what can you tell me about this new twig?
Well, there's a lot to check out and know for the stick itself.
First off, this isn't the same one. Like, we saw a smoke, quote unquote, version at the Four Nations. That's different than this.
Not the same thing. Not the same thing. There is going to be a new smoke stick, but we can't talk about that. We're talking about this one right now. So current Project X smoke stick, why it's important. What's the big selling feature? I mean, the first thing we're going to talk about is the weight. Like 555 grams for a 25-inch stick. It's pretty close to the lightest weight stick that's out there right now, off the top of my head. So, I mean, immediately by grabbing the stick itself, my general feel is it's like, yeah, you pick it up, it feels like there's like almost nothing in your hand, pretty much. Overall, we get some of the same characteristics that we do see on true sticks in general. The VSS, their vibration suppression system, does make its return. Their invert flex. So basically what that means is how you're flexing the stick itself. When you go actually take a shot, you can really bend it in and feel, again, it basically kicking at a lower kick point in particular.
And you can see sort of some of the different geometry down in the paddle, the construction, not flat, not rounded. You kind of see almost like what looks like a shaft sort of running through to a point.
Correct. Again, I mean, if you're into true sticks and you really like their products and whatnot, and you're going to find a safe stick here in terms of like general feel. We'll say a little bit of sticker shock. It is a pricier stick for sure. That said, again, if you're looking at that elite level and you're looking for that utmost of lightweight, again, looking for something that's going to be a bit more of that shooter style of a stick, I would say, look no further than this Project X Smoke.
So it's got a nice flex to it. Graphics are a little bit unique, sort of bare carbon fiber down at the bottom, not a glossy finish, which of course helps reduce that weight. You get the X on the front, the True on the back. Obviously, when you're painting on a bare carbon, it might not necessarily be the sexiest, glossiest look because there is no gloss on it. It's all about saving weight.
No, minimalistic will be I think the word of choice for sure. But that pays off when you're coming to the weight story of the stick itself.
Okay, options, curve, things like that. Is it all just retail? Are there custom orders on this one?
Nope, all just retail. One option is going to be your T31 curve, they call it, which is basically a P31 or, P4 curve inside CCM's world. So that all kind of remains the same. And then, no custom option, just stock off the wall.
Lightweight, the new True Project X Smoke. And we can look for a hazardous version of the smoke like we saw at Four Nations coming out maybe this summer.
Too early. Can't tell you.
Oh, he's got a top secret looking stick. It's all blacked and jetted out. And now he thinks he's like a spy agent. He's not going to tell us when the next one comes. Okay, Cam, we can live with that. I get it. Big timer.
Just another day at the office for me.
If you got any questions about the Project X Smoke, make sure you give Cam and his crew a shout here at the Hockey Shop. You can find them online at thehockeyshop.com or
604-589-8299 or 1-800-567-7790.
And just like that, in a cloud of smoke, I'm gone.
Is there one area where that stick would give you the edge? Is it playing the puck? Is it durability? Is it accents and visual appearance? Is it just managing around the crease?
I think it would be a good stick for me because we know I'm a little light these days in the weightlifting department. Sad to say that my daughter, who is really ramping up her volleyball training, is now lifting heavier than I am. So for a guy like me, super soft, no arms, a little bit of a, just not a lot of strength there. I think having a stick that light would probably benefit. It's There's like nothing to it. It's so light. I think it is the lightest stick on the rack at the hockey shop right now. So the biggest thing is for people like me who aren't as strong, need a light stick, this is the one.
I wonder when we'll ever get to a point where it's too light. Because it's going to happen.
I think
it will.
From a breakage standpoint, and I'm
Mhm.
not talking specifically about the True Stick necessarily, but from a breakage standpoint, I think we already see that in the pro versus second price point. One of the biggest differences is you end up with heavier carbon layups in the second price point. That's what makes the stick heavier, but it also has a tendency to make it a little more durable. Like at the end of the day, that threshold for weight comes with a durability question mark. Like there's a perfect balance there. And lighter versus durable, like we've already not crossed that balance, but you're making a choice to pay more, ironically, for lighter. You should know going in that inevitably there's a degree of less durability that comes with it. And we've seen that across all brands where, other sticks in the second price point. We've talked about it. Like, we joke about my warm-up stick or whatever. But the second price point tends to last a little longer.
Your warm-up stick has gained traction with me.
See, because you don't want to break your gamer, but you're
Exactly.
practicing all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you do that, because pretty much every shot you face when you're on an NHL practice has the potential to break it if it catches it on the shaft.
Hey, I broke 2 the other day within 15 minutes. And I've gone to the 24 inch paddle and like Carey Price with the smaller shaft. And so they grabbed one of Ilya Samsonov's sticks just to get me through the end of practice.
He's pretty upright. He's got a long stick, right?
It felt like I was using King Kong stick. It was so big.
You know what the funny, it's funny how these trends go. Like, we are not that far removed, although now that I think about it, time being a flat circle and all, like it's probably 10 years. But like when goalies were looking to try and max out 27, 28 inch paddles, more coverage.
And I was there.
Yeah,
and
more coverage along the ice on the paddle down, stuff like that.
Feels like that felt like a different sport. That stick.
Yeah.
It was, one, the paddle was bigger, but it was so tall, the whole thing. Wow.
Yeah, I'd be getting that stuck in the net every time I moved to my blocker side along the post for sure.
Have you tucked or gone down that path? Talking about the gear segment from?
No, you know what, Darren? This is me. This is my caveat. And folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, we did the Tuck or Untuck a couple weeks ago. Make sure you go check it out. It's been a fun one. We've got a ton of responses.
Tons of
people
response.
Telling us whether they tuck or untuck and why. I promised Cam that I would go tuck. I really did like the way it felt in the store. I even bought myself a set of suspenders to try it, but I only had 2 skates left against sort of my regular group, which is way above my pay grade. Like, these guys, most of them play junior, pro, or college. They're all better than me. Let's put it that way. As a guy who didn't start playing goal till his mid-30s, I have to work hard to keep up with them. And so the first skate, I had a little issue at home. I couldn't get there as early as I wanted to get it set up. So I said, well, listen, just for the sake of comfort and getting on the ice quick, I'm not going to tuck. Now I was down to one last skate with the group. I played really well in the second to last skate. Do you think I'm changing how my setup is for the last skate of the year? We had full benches, 26 guys, 2 or 3 that played in the NHL. Like, I was not going to go out there feeling uncomfortable. So my next skate will be outside of that group in a different format, a little more casual, a little less over my head. I promise to try tuck.
I'm with you. I promised myself too, and I haven't done it. I've had 3 skates since then.
Yeah, your skates are all against NHLers. You're not going out there uncomfortable, buddy.
But I just, that's the thing. I didn't want to put myself in that position of having to think about something else because I got enough stuff going on.
And that's not the kind of thing you can undo real quick.
Yes,
you're
right. And I thought about that. Like, do I just do it? I don't know. Can't do it. So we got to Stop It Goaltending, the app parent segment. No Hutch with us today. How are we going to handle this?
Well, we're going to rely on Kevin's experience with goalie parents. But first, we're going to talk about Stop It Goaltending, the app. The best part about Stop It Goaltending, the app, it puts you in control of your learning experience. They have multiple different segments that tap into their 25 years of goalie and goalie coaching experience. You can watch the 1-minute quick hits 5 times a week. They're new every week. You can dig into deep dive videos, drills, training, basically their version of pro reads where they have a coach walk you through a video session of 2 different goaltenders, comparing how they handle different situations, the pros and cons, really help you think the game, help you read the game better. You get all of that. You could literally deep dive this app and be lost for 2 weeks. Or you can just catch up as you go along, find those moments where you want to go down the rabbit hole, maybe on a weekend when you have more time, but on a day-to-day basis, just take a minute a day to watch the quick hits, the primers as they call them, and you will become a better goaltender. And of course, to go along with your Stop It Goaltending You, the app membership, you get a free membership to InGoal Premium. We've got some great new content up there, some new pro reads, some new pro drills, a video and a conversation with Spencer Knight about lateral release and how he uses it in his warm-ups now. We've got some more warm-up drills coming from our featured guest, the Utah Hockey Club, and Jaxson Stauber weighs in on a drill that we've got coming up this week. Just tons of material at InGoal Premium. And of course, you get that as part of your subscription to Stop It Goaltending You, the app.
Well done.
Now can I be a goalie parent when I'm not a goalie parent?
Well, you're a parent of an athlete. So I think you're graduated into it.
And maybe
there's
I
lessons that you've or experiences that you've had that can help you down this path.
And I think the biggest one, Darren, is that my daughter plays competitive volleyball. She's a libero. She's looking at playing college volleyball next year. Having some conversations. We've got some official visits coming up next month. So the libero is the goalie of the team, is what I was once told. They're the defensive specialist. She's out there digging everything, making passes, all that kind of stuff. But just because she's the goalie of the team doesn't mean that I know anything about volleyball. No matter how many of her games I watch, how many practices I've seen over the years, I'm not a volleyball expert. And it's something to keep in mind for goalie parents. As much as we want to educate ourselves about the position to help our young goaltender, we probably shouldn't be too judgmental about their sessions with a goalie coach, whether it's one-on-one privates, ahead of a practice if your team brings in a goalie coach to help your minor hockey experience, or with an eye towards our Goalie School guide, which Hutch is busy publishing right now, and our recent directory, the way they experience learning in a goalie school environment this summer. And the reason I know that we need to take a step back, or some goalie parents need to take a step back, is because of the number of times I have been on the ice with NHL goalie coaches and NHL goalies here in Vancouver in particular, and run into a parent that watches the session and inevitably comes up to us afterwards and asks me, "You guys were just filming for an InGoal segment, right? That's not how they actually train, right?" Because the work was all about meticulous details, skating. It's not sexy. The goalie's not so exhausted he can't move afterwards. He's not dripping in sweat. And so it has happened like well over a dozen times over the years where somebody I know who happens to be a goalie parent will say, "That's not actually how they train." And I will say, "No, that is exactly how they train in the off season." And there's a lesson there for goalie parents when they're watching their kids. If you want to watch your kid at Goalie School, the drills don't have to be crazy, flying all over the place. Your kid doesn't have to be so exhausted he can't walk at the end of the day, so tired he falls asleep immediately. Like, there are benefits, especially as they get older, to skating work, to the types of drills that might not be what you think they should be, but they are there for the goalie and they will help them get better. Skating drills are good. We can still ask questions. Like, we talk about skating. If you can't skate, you can't play at the NHL level. And where does that skating start? It starts in instructions. It starts in the summer. It starts in the off season. It starts in their practices. So skating is good. The question you can ask Are they just moving around mindlessly on the ice as you watch? Or are there positive corrections being made? Is there instruction being applied to it? Simple drills matter. But again, if they're not doing it correctly, is the goalie coach working with them, having conversations, and helping them get better? The complex drills that I think a lot of parents love, the Instagram drills that we see where there are pucks flying all over the places and multiple shot locations, like those are fine too. But did they come later in the day or later in the week at a goalie summer school or a weekend camp? There should be some logic to how these drills sequence throughout the day and throughout the week. Some schools work a rotation of stations, which is fine, but then the logic of building in complexity of skill should be seen throughout the week. Are we working in progressions? USA hockey, when we took the bronze course, Darren, you remember them talking about complex drills are fine, but are they logical in sequence? Does it end up with a goalie stopping a puck on one side and then going to the other side to make another save that doesn't connect to the previous one? Do they, in other words, work through what we might see in a game?
Mm-hmm.
These are all questions that it's fair to ask as a goalie parent if you are going to stick around and watch your kids go through a camp or go through a day. Now, my advice would be not to, just to trust the people you've put in place and let them do their thing. Because the reality is, whether it's me as a goalie parent or a volleyball parent, or the many goalie parents who have watched me work with NHL goalies as a video guy and said afterwards, that can't possibly be how they train. You guys were just doing film work for InGoal. I would suggest that you probably need to take a step back, because what they're doing may not be registering properly in terms of why it's important and how they're doing it. So just a little bit of advice from a non-goalie parent to all the goalie parents out there. Before you criticize what you're seeing out there, there are specific questions you can ask. And one of them is, do I really understand what they're trying to accomplish today? It doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes the simplest things, especially when it comes to skating, are the most important for your young goaltender.
It's the parent segment brought to you by Stop It Goaltending, you the app from Arm's Length, courtesy of a parent in Kevin Whitling. Now
Hutch is gonna. This will be the question, folks. Do you hear me? I'm complicating his edit process here if he decides to redo the parent segment. Do you hear me doing the parent segment, or are me and Darren now talking post-parent segment, but Hutch's voice is on the parent segment because I didn't do a good enough job? He's done such a great job creating the parent segment and building the value in it that I feel a little nervous about having lived up to the work he's done to this point in making the parent segment such a valuable part of the InGoal Radio podcast. So if he re-records it, Hutch, it's okay, buddy.
Let's make it open-ended, all right? Give him the choice. So it can't just be, I had to use Woody because you guys didn't throw to me. So this is what we'll do. I'll go give him two options. Woody, there's the parent segment. Hutch, what do you got this week? Thanks, Woody. All right, Hutch, that was awesome. See, he can take any of those, splice it in. Now, Hutch, it's up to you.
Or he could leave all this in as he prefers to do when we go off on our little tangents,
I like
buddy,
that too.
And make us look like who we are, which is just rambling idiots.
Just rambling, just morons. And his idea is, I'm going to make you guys look like the morons you are by not touching it. There we go. Visual Edge Pro Reads. What do you have this week?
Well, first off, our friends at Visual Edge have a great offer for our InGoal Premium subscribers. If you are an InGoal Premium subscriber, you should have received the email. If you're not, make sure you check out the Pro Reads each week and look for your special discount code. I can't say it on air right here because then everybody would use it. 50% off the first 6 months. 50% off the first 6 months of Visual Edge. Visual Edge sponsors our Pro Reads segment every week, which makes perfect sense because Pro Reads is all about NHL goalies breaking down video to help young goalies see the game better. And Visual Edge is all about helping goalies see better, see the puck better, track the puck better, see everything around them better, divergence, convergence when the puck is coming at you, training all these different visual skills to help you see the game better, much like we do here at our Pro Reads segment. This week's featured guest on the Pro Read segment, we're going back to Devin Levi, who's coming off another good week in the American Hockey League. So he's not playing in the NHL right now, but we know he is an NHL goaltender paying his dues down in the American League this week. And we've got another great segment with Devin. He's become one of our favorites here. The video session we did with him is now fully a summer and a bit old, but the level he gets into in terms of his breakdowns and how he sees the game is the kind that we just can't miss. So we're going back to Devin Levi this week.
Plus, he's got the best taping technique I've ever seen for the top of your stick.
And great style this year, too. It won't be reflected in this Pro Reads drill because, like I said, it's video from the previous season. But his tan leather sort of vintage setup from CCM is chef's kiss.
I like the fact that he's in the American Hockey League. A similar strategy that the Calgary Flames used with Dustin Wolf.
Fair.
Play him. That entry-level contract, play him a ton as a goaltender in the American Hockey League.
Well, and we didn't get to it, but when we were talking about guys that deserve to be in the Vezina Trophy discussion, again, we'll see how the rest of the season goes. There's a month left in it, and it's got to be tip to tail. 3 weeks left in it. Dustin Wolf is 4th in the NHL in goals saved above expected right now, almost 17, just a hair behind Igor Shesterkin. So for all the conversation about Dustin Wolf deserving to be in the Calder Trophy discussion as the NHL's top rookie, I think you can make a fair argument, especially given how little run support the goalies in Calgary get, that he would fairly be in the conversation for the Vezina Trophy. He should certainly get more votes and more attention than he has been getting to this point. I think the win totals keep him out, but hard to win when your team doesn't score for you.
It's that part, the goal support along the way for the Calgary netminders. When you go into a game knowing you have that small of a margin for error, it adds to the importance of your performance. And quite frankly, it heaps a load of pressure on you.
We know this as goalies, right? Yeah. But I don't think a lot of people realize just how much. I remember, and this is ironic because it's a Calgary Flames discussion, but I remember back when Kiprusoff was dominating for the Calgary Flames, one of the focal points was that he played behind a really elite and well-structured defensive environment. Daryl Sutter being the coach there. They defended really well, but they did not score. And so the question was, and I used to ask this around the league at the time, because I didn't know what the answer was. I was ignorant to it myself. This is around early 2000s before I started playing goal. Would you rather be behind a team that was exceptional defensively but didn't score, or a team that gave up more chances, but you knew they could put up 3 or 4 for you and bail you out every once in a while? And unanimously back then, and to this day, if you ask NHL goalies that question, they will take the team that surrenders a few more grade A's, but has the ability to score, because the pressure of going into a game, knowing that 1 or 2 is 1 or 2 too many, is so immense and so crippling after a while. So, and that's what Dustin Wolf and Dan Vladar, who's gotten some big wins for them down the stretch, have been dealing with for much of this year.
That's the closest I've come to matching a National Hockey League goaltender.
Is playing on a team that can't score?
No. Is I'd rather play for a team that can bail me out a little bit. I like that idea.
It's true. It's true at every level, Darren, right? Like I remember Beer League, we had one year where we moved up a division and like we would get 1 or 2 every night. And it's like, it's a real, like even at that, you just know you have to be perfect.
No, it's not fun.
No, it's not. It's not. May have quit after that year.
People may think like this is the greatest thing ever. Woody and Mallard were just 2 perfect dudes. It's not fun. It's hard being us.
It is, yeah. Playing behind crappy beer league teams is hard.
Slide over to our NHL Centurina feature interview. This is fun. Jaxson Stauber, 2nd generation goaltender. There's just cool thoughts from Jaxson. I got to watch him firsthand, both in the American Hockey League and the National Hockey League this year. So it's a neat experience for me and close to home, but it's also brought to us by NHL Centurina.
Yeah, and we are at that time of year. We talk about summer and what you're doing for your young goalie. We're talking about going to goalie schools and how we watch goalie schools as a parent, how we watch goalie sessions as a parent. One of the things you can do, and we've talked a lot about this, is getting your kid off the ice, getting them a break, making sure they get away from the game a little bit. NHL Sense Arena is a great way to do both, to give them an opportunity to stay sharp, to enhance some of their skills, their hand-eye coordination, their puck tracking. There are cognitive drills you can do inside the NHL Sense Arena virtual reality environment without having to be on the ice, without feeling overwhelmed by the game, feeling like you can still get away for it. Throw the headset on once a week. We had a parent last summer talk about really wanting to let his kid get away from the game, and they just structured a little bit of time each week to hop on the headset. And he actually felt like his young goaltender came into tryouts. They had a family trip as well that made it tough to get on the ice before tryouts. They felt their young goaltender came back into tryouts better, mentally refreshed, but still visually sharp. Hands were great, felt good about his game, had a confidence level, and that was all without the extra cost, the extra time, or the extra stress of trying to figure out how to get on the ice. NHL Sense Arena is the closest thing you can get to being on the ice without having to pay $400 an hour to get there. It gives you a chance to train in the off season way more than you would unless you happen to own your own rink, and provides a great, this is the time of year where it makes the most sense because it can allow you to sort of escape the rink, but not neglect your development as a goaltender. NHL Sense Arena is a great tool, and now is a great time to invest in it.
And for mom and dad, you can throw on the headset yourself and experience what your child's going through a little bit. And when you watch that goalie seminar, you go, oh, that's why they're dialing it in.
And for the young goalies listening to this, do what Eric Comrie did a couple of years ago. Hey, you guys think this is so easy? Throw on the headset. Let's see if you could stop the NHL level shots.
Come on. We've got a second generation netminder and professional hockey, Jaxson Stauber, this week.
Yeah, and we talk about guys that are having performances, relative to shot quality, like Jaxson Stauber in his very limited, admittedly, experience with Utah this year, has produced numbers that would, over the course of a season, be top 10 in the NHL. So he hasn't played much, and we know how hard that is, but he's played well when he's in there. And watching him at practice the other day, when Utah came through town, watching the work he put in with Corey Schwab, I can understand why. There's a really nice balance to his game that I really liked. There's a work ethic there. And when you get a chance to listen to this conversation, it's not a long one. We only had 15 or 20 minutes after practice to catch up. But you can understand where the roots of that are for him. He talks a little bit about his approach, talks about the evolution of some stance mechanics, and how he's come to sort of change some elements of his game. We get into all of it in let's just say, a quick but condensed, information-packed interview with Jaxson Stauber of the Utah Hockey Club. So normally we start these by asking where you got started. Like, when did goaltending become a passion for you? It's just a nice little way to sort of let everyone get to know you. I think I got into the answer with your dad. How'd you get started? How much of a role did he play in that?
Yeah. I have an older sister who's a year and a half older. So we were in skating lessons probably when we were like 4 and 5. And I did not like it at all. I hated it. I would do snow angels on the ice. And so he took us both off. She actually enjoyed it. I didn't. So she kind of didn't get to finish because of me. But so I did snow angels and he took me off. He's like, you're not playing? I'm like, that's fine. Like, I don't want to, whatever. And then it probably wasn't until I was 8 that I had some younger cousins that were a year younger than me that were starting to play hockey up in Duluth, where my dad's from. And so, you go up there for Christmas, people are playing hockey and stuff. So then kind of wanted to get into it a little bit more. So started playing that next year. Everyone kind of tries goalie once or twice. And then that next year I was a squirt, and they had a shortage of goalies in our organization. So of course they go and they ask my dad, hey, does he want to play goalie? And he's like, I'm not sure. So I did half goalie, half skater that year. And then after that year, I transitioned to full-time goalie. And I don't really ever remember thinking like, oh, like I really want to do this. It just kind of was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be a goalie. And he was never pushy on it or anything like that. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
As you said, sometimes the guys that played it don't want their kids to play the position because they know everything that comes with it. Maybe the only thing worse than being a goalie is being a goalie parent. What was it like? How'd your dad manage that relationship in the early going?
Yeah, obviously he's got his goalie school back in Minnesota, so I would go there growing up, and so he would coach me, and yeah, that's definitely a different dynamic and relationship as a kid, and your dad's coaching you, you're not afraid to push back a little bit, so balancing that dynamic can be a little tricky, and I think it got better as we got older. But yeah, we don't really get on the ice too much anymore, maybe once or twice a summer, but he likes to do things very high pace in the summer, and I'm like, okay, let's go back to some of the basics, take things slow. And so it's a little bit of a different mindset. So I guess in that case, like it's good that we don't skate too much together in the summer, but it is fun every once in a while to jump in and get on the ice with them again.
Okay, so speaking of coaches and different voices, who are some of the other ones that maybe had big influences on you along the way? I think of Rockford and Chicago with Jimmy, a new voice here with Corey Schwab. When you think about your game, who are some of the guys that have impacted you in different ways, and in what ways? Give me maybe an example.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have a lot of really good coaches, and I think everyone provides something different, whether it's, technical, someone who's played the position, where it's going to be a little bit more tactical information, and guys that are just good with, asking you what you need and being that support role. I think of my goalie coach in Providence, Bruce Irving, who was really good at that. Like, he was big into skating and stuff like that, and like kind of drills that I did growing up as a kid. So that was really refreshing, and that was fun, to skate with him. Yeah, I think last year working with Matt Smith in Rockford was huge. Like, he kind of opened my eyes to some different elements of my game that maybe I hadn't thought of before. So I would credit him with a lot of that, and yeah, like you said, working with Corey and Jeff Hill in Tucson as well, like that's been really good this year, and even Jimmy as well when I was in Chicago. Like he's worked with a lot of really good goalies, Stanley Cup champions like Corey Crawford. So just getting bits and pieces of information from everyone and trying to see what works and implement some of those stuff into my game has been huge.
Can you give me an example with Matt? Like just something that, because he gives a lot of young goalie parents that listen to this, maybe a takeaway that like, especially because you said it was new to you, right? Yeah. At this stage, sometimes we don't hear much about something that's new. If you give me an example, if you're comfortable with it, but then also the importance of always being open to new ideas. We can get a little stuck in our ways sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes like when you hear, I think you need to work on this, a lot of people get defensive at first. And so it's really good to keep an open mind. Like that's something that I've always had. Like I'm always eager to learn. Like I don't think I have everything figured out. And even when you've played in the NHL for a long time, like I think you can always get better. And the day that you stop thinking you can improve that's a bad day. But one thing with back to Matt, was just being a little bit more upright in my stance, and even just a little bit wider. I know like a lot of times people are like,
narrowing out now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like it's definitely easier to move. But I think when guys are in good scoring areas, for me, like getting a little bit wider actually allowed me to hold my edges longer because I didn't have to race to try and get down to the ice. And it also just the way some people are different, right? The way your body is, like it gave me a little bit more access to drop and keep my feet a little bit, not so much falling behind me, if that makes sense.
So the one little wider flare.
Yeah, exactly. So just, that was kind of the biggest thing, was just postural stuff. And like I said, keeping a little bit upright and getting a little bit wider at times. That was the biggest thing that we worked on. And, that was a challenge. And I think it's hard too, like in a practice setting, when, your coach is your head coach and, if you're not communicating that stuff effectively with him about what you're working on, they just maybe see pucks going in and they're like, what the heck's going on? It's like, well, this is kind of what you have to do to get better at things. So balancing that dynamic can be pretty tricky as well. But I felt like Matt did a really good job of making sure that like he was going to help me communicate that with the coaching staff and say like, hey, like things might look a little bit awkward, here or there, but like we're working on stuff like, and it's early in the year, right? Like you have a lot more practices, especially in the American League. So you have time to kind of work on those things. So yeah.
So it sounds like almost like you've added like a mid stance, like a midpoint between save execution and being upright. Because it's funny, we do hear a lot of guys talk about narrowing up and the game being so fast east-west, but once it's into dangerous areas, the transition from narrow to down can be costly if you don't sort of have a middle balance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like and Corey's big on, you know, having the high stance, like with the traffic when that puck's outside. Obviously, it gives you the benefit of being able to see, right? Because if you're in a wide, low stance and there's so much traffic, like it's really hard to see around guys in this league. And so, you know,
traffic is very purposeful in this league, isn't it?
Yeah, and when you have 3, 4, 5 bodies in front and guys are coming in and out, like that can be difficult. So, you know, utilizing that high stance, especially when that puck's kind of on the outside, and then as it gets closer, working like you're talking about into a bit of a mid stance. Then when the puck's in the slot, I'd call it my wider stance. So yeah, you know, have 3 different kind of variations almost.
Edge work, skating. I notice like in some of your movements, a lot more. Instead of T-push, a little bit more shuffle, almost like into a lateral release at times, a real control to that skating. Again, only watching one practice, certainly don't know your game. Does it feel like that? Like, is that something that's part of your game?
Yeah, I think you saw that warm-up that we did with Corey where it's like you start in a narrow stance at the top, kind of do into a shuffle into your wider stance, just kind of simulating that power play, right? The puck goes up to the flank or up to the point and it goes to the flank for a one-timer. You see that so often. And so working on like going that transition from the high stance into that, you know, that lower stance and being ready for that shot in that situation. So, and I think too, like guys can shoot at any time from here. So making sure that, you know, you're trying to get to plays on your feet. And I think you know, when you're not maybe opening up to T-push quite as much on some of those plays, it allows you to be ready for that shot if it does come.
I was going to say too, and if you haven't, like if the guy one touches it back the other way, you've got that edge as opposed to, like you said, in a T-push, having to now close it and go back the other way. And the way guys are moving pucks on power plays in particular, that can be a costly delay. You're exactly right. That was the drill I was watching. I really enjoyed it. Just the control of that movement for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you're still going to have to T-push at times.
Yeah,
when
that
puck goes cross ice, you're going to have to open up. But, you know, just finding ways to be effective and to be ready to move kind of at all times is big.
You had so much success in the NHL right away, like win your first 3 games and things like that. What was that like? What are your memories of that? You're getting that taste and having that instant success, that early success. I know it's not instant because there's a long path to it, but like when you look back at that first shutout this year, you've had a lot of success early. How do you feel about your game at this level?
Yeah. You know, I think that was, you know, when you get called up for the first time, there's a lot of excitement, but a lot of jitters too. And I felt like I'd been up long enough where I'd been comfortable kind of being around the team and working into, you know, the speed of the game and the difference between the American League and the NHL. So I think that was huge. And, you know, from that first game, that gave me a lot of confidence going forward for those next games. And, yeah, you know, even this year, like when I got called up, like I didn't play for I think 2 weeks and then, you know, got that opportunity. So that, again, gave me a chance to kind of get back up to speed and whatnot, because there is definitely a difference. And I feel like, you know, at this level, the game is, you know, the players around you are so good. The players in their team are really good, but your players are good too. So sometimes it's, you know, you can read things a little bit differently than maybe the American League's a little bit more chaotic and at times, I think, because guys are, you know, there's a lot of young guys, a lot of really good players, but everyone's kind of learning too, right? So
I've had guys describe it not in a critical way, but just a league with more, as a goalie trying to make reads, there's a lot more mistakes in front of you.
For sure, absolutely, and that's something that, you know, mistakes happen at every level, but I think, you know, up here it's guys make really high-end plays, not necessarily due to other people's mistakes, but just because they're the best players in the world. So, you know, adjusting to that. But like I said, reading off of your own teammates maybe can be a little bit easier at times. But it's still like, it still takes a really high level of obviously focus and attention to detail, because they can make plays from, you know, seemingly nothing situations. So it's, you know, always being ready and never counting, well, you know, he's not going to make that play or he's not going to shoot that puck, because they'll find a way to do it.
Such a fine line, because you do have to anticipate at this level, but like you said, you can't over anticipate. You can get caught cheating if you do that at this level as well. Reading the game. How do you go about reading and processing it at this level? Do you use video? Do you work with Schwabi, or is it just a matter of experience and watching?
think a combination of all that stuff. I think video is really good because you can see things from a different perspective, and then when you're in the game, it feels a lot different. You can see things coming from a mile away when you're on video, and then when you're in the game, there's bodies
It looks
flying.
easy on video, right?
Yeah, exactly, and it's way faster than on the video. But I think it's a combination of watching video. In-game experience is invaluable. It's the tool that's going to give you the most. But just seeing situations over and over again, even in practice, is going to help, kind of replicate some of that stuff.
You mentioned the jitters your first time up. Can I just ask, like, maybe advice for young goalies? A lot of young goalies right now getting ready for their first playoffs. How do you manage jitters? Have you learned over the years to embrace them, or you have different techniques that you use to sort of get over the nerves?
Yeah, I think, I remember in college, we had a couple playoff games, and I was really nervous for those games. And sometimes when you get really nervous, you get shortness of breath. Maybe you're not feeling as well. And I remember before my first game, there's some nerves, and I'm like, I can't afford to feel like that again, because otherwise this thing could go south really quick. So just having the mindset of just embrace, the nerves are okay. That means you care, you want to do well, all that stuff. You shouldn't be dead inside. But I think having that balance of nerves and just being confident that, you can go out there and play and be successful, and just understanding that at the end of the day, this is a great opportunity. And, for me personally, it was my first game in the NHL. That's something you dream of as a kid. Just embrace that.
Have you worked with anyone to sort of breathing techniques or anything like that, or you just all do it naturally?
That's something my dad's been big the last few years, or not few years, but more so since he stopped coaching me on the ice, is more mental stuff. And even growing up, we always talked about that. And just, I remember, being young goalie sometimes before a game, and you're going, Dad, I'm really nervous. And just talking with him, and that even makes you feel better. So I think just being open about how you're feeling is huge. And, there's a lot of great mental skills coaches, and I worked with some of those guys when I was with Chicago, and it was great. They would send these kind of weekly emails almost, and it would just have little blurbs of mental skills, breathing techniques, stuff like that. So I think that's, those things can be helpful, and you can try those out and see what works, because I think for everyone it's going to be different. But
tools in the toolbox. We heard technically about that. It sounds like mental too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Last one, skating. You're skating, again, as an observer who hasn't seen a ton of you, feels like it's a strength. Where does that come from, and how important is edge work to you? What does edge work mean to you?
Yeah, skating was the biggest emphasis my dad had growing up, and it wasn't just goalie movements. It was a lot of, footwork, skating around, like a forward too. Just being able to be agile and move on your feet, puck handling, stuff like that. That's what I did growing up. That's still what I like to do at the beginning of the summer when I get back on the ice, is just to get back into some of that stuff, because you don't get a chance to do it quite as often during the season. You do it when you can, but, being able to move in different ways on the ice and find balance points and stuff is a big part of the game. So that's huge, and that helps you to get in position and just make the game simpler for you.
Oh, it's pretty evident when I watch you play that's where the roots come from. So I really appreciate this, Jaxson. Thanks so much for spending the time with us.
Thanks for having me.
Boy, he came a long way from the tantrum first time he was on the ice, and his dad taking him and his sister off.
I liked that origin story. You never know, it's always going to be different with guys whose parents played, right? I feel like there's, so some
the cousins up north
getting them back into it.
Yeah, that was great, and it just wasn't that natural. Oh, you're the son of a NHL player.
It's probably
what you're gonna do.
But probably also some good lessons in how his dad managed it too, right? Some really good lessons in terms of how they managed that relationship and some of the different inputs. And yeah, there was, like I said, not a long interview. We'd love to, it just leaves the door open for us to get another half hour with Jaxson a couple of years from now. But he's a guy who, when he was in Chicago before, and he came up, had a couple brief conversations with him. Again, every time I watched him play, I know it's a tiny sample, but I was impressed with a lot of the elements that tend to lead to success. And I think it's just a matter of time now before he gets an opportunity to play a little more. He's going to open some eyes.
They rolled into Vegas in the front half of the season, and Jaxson got the start. And if you were looking at it just from 30,000 feet, you would have thought, Utah's in town. Vegas has great home ice record advantage, Golden Knights, and it got flipped. Utah was the better team early, and Jackson ended up posting a shutout. It was a cool story.
I
for
forgot.
Jaxson
I
Stauber.
think I asked him about the first NHL shot,
Yeah.
about his success, and I forgot that you got to watch and call that
Yeah.
game, Darren.
And he was great from start to finish in that game. It was a lopsided score, but his performance, he earned that
Love it.
perfect game.
I love it. He's like I said, small sample, admittedly, but through 2 organizations now, anytime I've had a chance to watch him play, I've been impressed. And again, when we get into those small samples, the numbers help us paint a better picture. Like I remember, ironically, Connor Ingram getting into a couple of games with Nashville, and the numbers were not flattering at all on the Raw, because one of them was the second half of back-to-back against that Edmonton Oilers team that was wiping everybody off the face of the planet at the time. And without the ability to look at the quality of the shots he faced, you would have thought it was a poor performance, but it actually wasn't. And so sometimes in these tiny samples, a way for us to actually weight how much of this performance is goalie, how much of it is team, is through these adjusted statistics that we get through Clearsight Analytics. And, Jackson's sample remains small enough that I could understand why teams might be hesitant. But as more and more goalies lock in early with their current teams and thin out the UFA pool this summer, goalies like him that have great success, Marcus Hogberg with the New York Islanders is another one. I think you can find those quote unquote diamonds in the rough, or maybe undiscovered diamonds, a little easier if we rely on some of those adjusted numbers we spent so much time talking about earlier in the show. And Jackson's reflect really well on his performance so far when he has got the call.
Our sample size is small. You and I doing the show together, we've done 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, because Dad doesn't let us do it unattended.
But I think we've done well. I think the numbers would point to positive performance.
I think our adjusted numbers are off the charts today, Darren. We're in at under an hour.
I think it's solid.
Our lawsuit eligible statements per 60 is really low. Our laughs per 60 is up. We're having fun. I think we've done okay, buddy.
The number of chirps to Hutch per 60, extremely high.
Like a good practice, we got to go Marc-Andre Fleury on this. You got to be mixing it up with your teammates in a fun, good-natured way.
Now, we don't want to do this every week because we like Hutch and he does a lot of work for us. So we don't want to have to carry it all on our own.
Hey, but speaking of work, the special assignment that Hutch is on right now is finishing the Goalie School Guide, which is a ton of work. And this man has carried this project from start to finish. I am a mere bystander, and I am so excited to see how it's going to look. Our online directory, folks, is already there. If you want to search for Goalie School, go to the website. You'll get it in your email soon. We are now the #1 resource, the easiest way to find a goalie school for the summer. Search it by city. If you're going to be traveling this summer, you want to say Kelowna, just one that we know. You can search it in there, see what goalie schools are offered. Ontario, Toronto, you got a family trip planned to
Nevada,
California. What are the goalie schools that are an option down there? When are they running? Las Vegas, you want to go see Darren? Where are the camps? When are the camps in Vegas? They should all be listed in there. We have over 150 schools participating, and we will have a magazine-style guide that will launch this week, maybe even by the time you hear this, all thanks to the work of David Hutchison and John Hodes, who's doing the layout on the magazine for us as well.
Awesome stuff. Hutch, well done. Hurry up and finish it because we miss you.
We do.
I know that's kind of
I don't think he misses us, especially doesn't miss me right now at this point, Darren.
Does he appreciate being slammed with work? Does that offset being free from us? Because technically he still has to edit this thing together.
Yeah, but he didn't have to spend an hour participating. He just has to listen after. So with that in mind, the longer you and I keep making jokes about it, the harder he has to work. We should probably cut this off.
All right,
Sorry.
well, let's go for another half an hour then. That's good. Thanks to Jaxson. Thanks to Cam. Appreciate everybody listening, your continued support. Love hearing from you, too. Send us your comments about the goalie fight, what you thought of it, what was your favorite goalie fight, and whether or not we'll see them again. We get goalie goals all the time, but the goalie fights, maybe a thing of the past. Love to hear from you. Just have some fun with that. It's not a serious conversation because I don't want to get our lawsuit ratio up a little bit. Woody, thanks for doing this, buddy, and have a great week.
InGoal does not condone fighting amongst goaltenders.